Hi, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join me on today's program. Today's program is taken right out of the Hypertrophy files, and the Hypertrophy files are part of a series of lectures that I produce for you doctors out of the Basic Science series for Chiropractic Continuing Education. And today's program is approved for 6 hours of continuing education in the general category by the Board of Chiropractic Examiners. So welcome to the program and thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy today's program quite a bit and that you get a lot out of it. The focus of today's program is going to be on two words, and these are two words that I tell almost every one of my patients on almost every single visit that I have with them. And these are some profound words, and you don't have to say really much more than these two words to your patients. And if you're able to get a head nod from your patients after you repeat this mantra to them, you'll know that you're doing the very best thing that you can for them. And this applies to you as well. Today's program is entitled Exercise Recommendations for Chiropractors and Their Patients. And so today's program is directed, first of all, doctors, at you, because I know what your life is like, and I know what it's like to be a chiropractor, because I am a chiropractor, and I've been a chiropractor for 27 years, and I know that being a chiropractor is a physical job. It's a physically demanding, it's a heavy lifting job. So we have those physical demands on us. Also, as respected healthcare authorities, we also serve as role models to our patients. So it's important that we practice what we preach. And so I direct this program first and foremost to you, doctor, and then also to your patients. And the mantra and the two words that I constantly reinforce both to myself and to my patients, and that I want to impart to you and your patients, is to up muscle. Up muscle. It's the philosophy of this program, and it's my sincere opinion that we need to continually focus on increasing the muscle mass content of our body, and this is regardless of age. In fact, as we age through our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, I don't know where you lie on that spectrum, but speaking for myself, I'm probably at the midpoint of that spectrum and inching perhaps slightly past the midpoint of that spectrum. And as we do age, it becomes even more important to focus on upping the muscle mass content of our bodies. So that's the whole purpose of our program today, is to learn how to preserve muscle mass and how to promote and grow new muscle mass regardless of our age, regardless of our physical condition, or regardless of any limitations that we may think that we have that prevent us from doing just that, from building new muscle. So this is called the Hypertrophy Files, and this is one of several lessons in the Hypertrophy Files, which is a series of exercise, dietary, and lifestyle techniques designed to promote muscle hypertrophy. So today we're going to talk about lesson number 1 from the Hypertrophy Files. And today we're going to focus on some exercise techniques involving and focusing on 3 very narrow principles. We're going to narrow this entire concept down to 3 simple, effective, and extremely powerful techniques that you and your patients can implement right away that will tremendously improve and enhance the benefits that you get from standard exercise, whether those be performed in a health club or whether those be performed at home with simple and inexpensive implements. And those 3 simple principles that we're going to focus on in this program include, number 1, the biarticular muscles, the eccentric muscle actions, and the pre-stretch principle. And of course, we'll elaborate over the next 6 hours on these 3 principles. So if you're ready with me, I'd like you to grab your handout materials for your note-taking benefit. Grab you a snack and a drink and get ready to get down to some brass tacks of anatomy, physiology, and the science behind muscle hypertrophy. Okay, so let's review. There's our focus for the remainder of the program. We're going to focus on what I call the big 3 hypertrophy secrets. And this is the very best that modern research has to offer us now for increasing muscle cross-sectional area. Technique number 1, we want to focus on biarticular and multi-articular muscles. Technique number 2, we want to focus on the pre-stretch, exercising the muscle throughout its full range of motion from passive to active insufficiency. And then technique number 3 is we want to focus on eccentric muscle actions. And the very best exercises that we have at our disposal are exercises that incorporate all 3 of these techniques. Some exercises incorporate 2 of these techniques. And even if you're not able to incorporate 2 or 3 techniques, simply implementing one of these techniques on most of the conventional exercises that are performed in health clubs these days will significantly improve the benefit of that exercise and give you a lot more benefit both for time increment and energy increment expended. Okay, so let's go on to some practical applications now of these exercise techniques and give you some real-world examples as to how to perform these various exercises. Now, as we start constructing our exercises and our exercise programs, we're going to be constructing exercises that encompass movement at the major joints of both the upper and the lower extremities. So let's just review the joint actions of both the upper and lower extremities, and we'll refer back to these joint actions as we describe and discuss our specific exercises. So with regards to joint actions of the upper body, recall the 6 major motions of the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint goes through flexion and extension, goes through adduction and abduction, and then it goes through internal and external rotation. And there are also accompanying and accessory movements that take place also at the scapula simultaneously. At the elbow goes through flexion and extension motions in the sagittal plane. The forearm is involved with pronation and supination movements, and we're going to have exercises that incorporate pronation and supination. At the wrist undergoes 4 major motions, flexion and extension, and also radial deviation and ulnar deviation. Radial deviation is sometimes referred to as wrist abduction, while ulnar deviation is sometimes referred to as wrist adduction. And I put a couple of asterisks next to the motions of wrist, radial, and ulnar deviation just to remind myself to tell you that with regards to the wrist, these are some joint motions that you're going to want to incorporate into your exercises that include the wrist, because wrist radial and ulnar deviations are very powerful motions and they're underutilized in most training programs. In fact, wrist radial deviation and wrist ulnar deviation are much more powerful and much stronger motions than is either wrist flexion or wrist extension. And that makes sense from a practical standpoint. If you think about activities of daily living and even many athletic activities that involve wrist radial and ulnar deviation. For example, hitting a baseball. with a baseball bat is almost purely wrist radial and ulnar deviation. Similarly, hitting a golf ball involves wrist radial and wrist ulnar deviation, and the power in wrist radial and ulnar deviation, particularly ulnar deviation, which is controlled by powerful and multi-articular muscles. Ulnar deviation is extremely powerful motion that you're going to want to incorporate into your exercise programs. And if you think about it, think about simply hammering in a nail or operating many hand tools. I mean, when you hammer in a nail, that's almost purely wrist radial and ulnar deviation. So we're going to want to pay particular attention to those particular joint motions. At the hand, we're involved with finger and thumb flexion and extension, and then the thumb also has some accessory movements that we can incorporate into our exercises. At the hip, the main joint motions involve flexion and extension, ab and adduction, and then also medial and lateral rotation of the hip joint. At the knee is a hinge joint. It's a uniplanar joint that allows only flexion and extension, although many textbooks will describe a small amount of rotation, although that's not something that can specifically be developed, nor that we necessarily want to incorporate into a hypertrophy training program, although knee rotation exercises may have some value in a rehabilitation program. And then at the ankle, the motions that we'll be concerned with again are uniplanar motion of plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. So let's take a look now at some standard exercises that are done on free weight and exercise machines and see how they can fit into our formula or how they can be adapted to most closely coincide with our formula, which, to remind you, is to, number one, incorporate biarticular muscles, number two, focus on the pre-stretch principle, and number three, to incorporate accentuated eccentrics as a part of every repetition of the exercise. So we're going to be considering the bench press, the behind the neck press, dumbbell pullovers, lying tricep extensions, and preacher curls for the upper extremities. And then for the lower extremities, we're going to have some demonstrations that include sissy squats, leg curls, and leg extensions. And then for the core, I'm going to demonstrate some of these techniques and principles as applied to these side oblique exercises. In conclusion, this is Dr. Perry Carpenter. I hope you enjoyed this program. Now you have a 20-question examination that I need you to complete and either fax or email back to me. My fax number is on the top of the examination form, and just as soon as I receive your examination form, I will provide you with a certificate of completion that you can use for your Board of Chiropractors continuing education credit. For now, I want to leave you with the website for chiropractors, which is entitled EZChiropracticCEU.com. We're always coming up with new programs, so check the website frequently for new programs designed to help you succeed as a chiropractor. Again, Dr. Perry Carpenter wishing you great success. If there's ever anything I can do to help you, feel free to call. Again, thanks for being with me on this program, and best of success.